a game-changing freight merger, the EPA's latest climate decision, and a deadly shooting that's left New York stunned. And here's today's trivia question. What do you fear if you have electorophobia? I bet at least one of you listening right now suffers from this. I personally don't. I'll tell you what it is at the end of the show. It's Wednesday, July 30th. This is the Flyover Podcast. Welcome to the Flyover Podcast, taking you above the noise for an unbiased, high-altitude view of today's headlines with daily coverage that's honest and refreshing. Let's cruise the news and land the facts. Good morning and welcome to the Flyover Podcast. I'm your weekday host, Ayla Brown. There's a lot happening all across the board today. Sports, news, politics, a stock market update, and of course, our exclusive Flyover Podcast Extra, where I'll give you some stories just for listeners of the Flyover Podcast. Are you ready? Let's take off. A massive shift in America's freight rail industry could be on the horizon. Union Pacific just announced plans to acquire Norfolk Southern in an $85 billion cash-in-stock deal. If approved, the merger would create the country's first ever transcontinental freight railroad, controlling over 50,000 route miles with a market value north of $250 billion. Leaders say it'll reduce delays, expand routes, and boost competitiveness against Canadian carriers and Warren Buffett's Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railway. But it'll take time. Regulators could take up to 2 years to greenlight it. Next, the EPA says it's scrapping a major Obama-era climate ruling. The Environmental Protection Agency plans to repeal the 2009 finding that greenhouse gases endanger human health, a decision that has served as the legal backbone for most vehicle emission standards and climate regulations for the last 15 years. EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin said the repeal will cut regulatory red tape and help lower costs for consumers. The agency argues that new developments cast doubt on the original science, and a formal announcement is expected soon. And finally, chilling new details out of New York. Police say the man behind Monday's deadly shooting spree in Manhattan was actually targeting the NFL's corporate offices. Shane Tamura left a suicide note blaming football-related head injuries for his mental health struggles. After fatally shooting 3 people, including a police officer in the lobby of an office building, Tamura accidentally bypassed the NFL offices, killing one more person on the 33rd floor before taking his own life. His note referenced CTE, saying, quote, "Study my brain, please. I'm sorry." Here are your top political headlines today. Missouri Senator Josh Hawley has introduced legislation, the American Worker Rebate Act, that would send $600 rebate checks to nearly all Americans and their dependent children, meaning a family of 4 could receive up to $2,400. The idea follows from tariff revenues generated under President Trump's trade policies this year. The bill is modeled after past stimulus efforts and would phase out payments for higher income earners, but it faces pushback from fiscal conservatives who argue the funds should be used to reduce the national debt instead. Read more about this in the show notes below. Next, another bipartisan bill introduced by Senators Jeff Merkley, Democrat from Oregon, and John Kennedy, Republican from Louisiana, would restrict the TSA's use of facial recognition at airport security checkpoints, requiring manual ID checks unless travelers opt in. The legislation includes provisions to prohibit discriminatory treatment of passengers who choose to bypass biometric scans and mandates immediate deletion of any face scan after identity verification. However, U.S. airline groups including Delta, American, United, and Southwest have urged lawmakers to reject the bill, warning it could cause major delays, undermine efficiency, and roll back recent automation advancements. Convicted Epstein associate Ghislaine Maxwell has informed Congress she will refuse to testify unless granted full immunity, allowed to speak outside prison, provided her deposition questions in advance, and permitted to testify only after her appeals are resolved. Maxwell's legal team says these conditions are necessary to safeguard her legal rights and avoid prejudicing any future jury. The House Oversight Committee has already stated it will not consider granting immunity, deepening the impasse ahead of her scheduled deposition in August. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is exploring plans to gradually annex portions of the Gaza Strip if Hamas fails to accept a ceasefire deal. The initiative, reportedly approved by Israel's security cabinet and supported by far-right finance minister Bezalel Smotrich, is intended to pressure Hamas amid stalled hostage negotiations. The proposal includes staged annexation of buffer zones and has been put forward as a contingency if diplomatic talks collapse. Today's episode is brought to you by David. Each David bar is packed with 28 grams of protein, just 150 calories, and zero sugar. So high protein, low calorie, and no junk. And if you're trying to hit your protein goals without wrecking your diet, David makes that easy, okay? So just grab a David bar and go about your day. Protein helps you build muscle, protect your bones, and keep you strong, especially as we get older. And with multiple flavors to choose from, your best bet, try the variety pack. I say it all the time, but there's so many yummy flavors. And if you buy 4 cartons, you're going to get the 5th one free. I'm trying to help you out. Head to davidprotein.com or click the link in the description below. Okay, this next segment is just for you, our loyal flyover listeners. Cambodian officials credit Trump with brokering a ceasefire with Thailand after border clashes killed over 30, with Cambodia accepting mediation in Malaysia. President Trump reportedly threatened to suspend tariff talks if the violence continued, prompting both countries to agree to peace negotiations. Cambodia has accepted Trump's offer to mediate, and while both sides are now laying down arms, deep-rooted tensions over the disputed border remain unresolved. The Trump administration is also pushing the DEA to declassify 7-hydroxymitragynine, a potent compound found in concentrated kratom products, as a Schedule I drug. FDA commissioner says the compound acts like an opioid and has been linked to a growing number of poisonings. While it occurs naturally in small amounts in kratom, concentrated versions sold online and in gas stations are raising alarm among regulators. The move is meant to prevent a new wave of opioid-like harm, although previous efforts to ban kratom have sparked backlash from users and advocates. And finally, meet Ellen Latham, the 68-year-old co-founder of Orange Theory Fitness, who's proving that age really is just a number. With a workout routine that spans 6 days a week, 15% body fat, and a focus on protein and recovery, she says the key to longevity is functional strength, not chasing perfection. Latham swears by tools like sauna and cold plunges, I hate those, and says after the age of 50, fitness becomes more about staying energized and independent than actually losing weight. I hope that advice helps you. That's your podcast Extra Roundup, and you'll get these types of stories and more every episode. Coming up, Katie Ledecky raises up another gold, Bryce Harper sounds off on league changes, and Mars is betting big on healthy snacks made in America. In finance, candy giant Mars announced Tuesday that it will invest an additional $2 billion by 2026 to expand U.S. manufacturing operations, building on the $6 billion it's poured in over the past 5 years. The plan includes a new Nature's Bakery facility in Utah, which will create over 230 jobs and boost production capacity for plant-based snack bars. Mars says this effort supports growing demand for health-focused snacking and highlights that 94% of its U.S. products are now made domestically. That's incredible. Next, Boeing reported a second quarter net loss of $611 million, sharply improved from about $1.44 billion a year earlier, driven by a 63% increase in commercial jet deliveries to 150 aircraft, the most in a quarter since 2018. Revenue surged 35% to $22.75 billion, though the company still faces regulatory delays for its 777-9 and MAX 710 models and potential labor action in its defense sector. And I know it's part entertainment and part finance, but Adam Sandler just gave Netflix its biggest U.S. debut ever. Happy Gilmore 2 racked up 46.7 million views in just 3 days. That tops the streamer's charts and proves that Adam Sandler's still got serious box office pull, even in the streaming era. Here's how the stock market did yesterday. Markets were just down across the board. The Nasdaq fell 0.38%, S&P 500 dipped 0.30%, and Dow dropped 0.46%. Bitcoin slid 1.91%, while gold edged up 0.44%. The biggest mover of the day was Novo Nordisk, which plunged nearly 22% after the company cut its full-year outlook, citing weaker than expected growth for its blockbuster obesity drug, Wegovy, in the U.S. In sports, Katie Ledecky cruised to another gold in the 1,500-meter freestyle at the World Aquatic Championships in Singapore, finishing a full 5 seconds ahead of the field. It marks her 18th World Championship title, further cementing her status as one of the most decorated swimmers in history. I'm going to have my little swimming boy look at her videos because he's starting to swim really well too, and she's a great role model. Next, the Chicago Cubs are mourning the loss of Hall of Famer Ryne Sandberg, who passed away at 65 after a battle with prostate cancer. He was a 10-time All-Star and 9-time Gold Glove winner, remembered for his leadership on and off the field. And speaking of baseball, things got heated in the MLB world. Bryce Harper strongly criticized Commissioner Rob Manfred in a players-only meeting over a proposed MLB salary cap, which he and others oppose. The outburst came after Manfred floated the idea of a league-wide salary cap, which Harper and many others said, not today. Still to come, South Florida's turning to robot rabbits to fight off giant pythons. Yes, really. And a new poll shows just how many Americans are quietly using AI at work. In science and technology, listen to this. Researchers in South Florida have deployed about 40 solar-powered robot rabbits across the Everglades to lure in invasive Burmese pythons. These animatronic bunnies mimic real marsh rabbits by generating heat, motion, and even scent, and are equipped with motion sensor cameras, so officials get alerts when a python approaches. What's the goal? To make it easier to locate these destructive snakes, which threaten native wildlife like raccoons and bobcats. In Gdansk, Poland, archaeologists recently uncovered the tomb of what appears to be a medieval knight beneath the site of a former ice cream parlor. The limestone slab, dating back to the 13th or 14th century, bears a carved image of a knight with a shield and a sword, and the skeleton found beneath is remarkably well preserved. You can see the photos of this knight in the show notes below. And a new AP NORC poll reveals how Americans are using AI in their daily lives. About 60% of adults report having used AI at least once to search for information, and roughly 40% say they've used it for idea generation or work-related tasks. The biggest generational divide: 74% of adults under 30 use AI for search compared to a smaller share of older users. Here are some stories that don't always make the front pages, but they're too weird, fascinating, or important to skip. Like this: monkeys at a temple in Bali have turned pickpocketing into a full-blown strategy. They've been stealing phones, sunglasses, and wallets from tourists for years, then essentially holding them ransom until they're traded for snacks. Researchers say the behavior is passed down through generation and even varies by monkey clan. And if you've ever felt like nothing is ever quite good enough, you're not alone. Psychologists say perfectionism, while often disguised as drive, can quietly fuel anxiety, low self-worth, and chronic burnout. There's now a quick quiz making the rounds to help people spot the signs early and start setting a more realistic standard. So if you want to take the quiz and see if you are a perfectionist, you can right down below in the show notes. And in Atlanta, a suburban high school just opened a brand new football stadium with a $62 million price tag. And get this, 10,000 seats. It's already drawing national attention. Its debut game will be broadcast on ESPN, adding to the growing spotlight on high school sports, at least in the South. Here's yesterday's poll question and the result. What's your favorite type of book to read? 34% said mystery thriller. 21% said you like historical biographies. 14% said nonfiction. 10% you like sci-fi fantasy. 9% said other. 6% said inspirational self-help. Self-help. Oh my gosh. And 6% said romance. Clearly, I need some self-help when I'm reading those results. Thank you so much to everyone who voted. Here's the poll question for today. We were talking about airport security just a few minutes ago. So at airport security, would you prefer using manual ID or facial recognition? Here are the ways you can vote. Manual ID, facial recognition, or third, I prefer not to fly. I guess I'll take an answer on this. I personally do not care. Just get me through security fast. Seriously, is one quicker than the other? If so, I'm going to take that one. Vote in the show notes below and I'll read the answers in tomorrow's show. Okay, everyone, it's time for trivia. What do you fear if you have electorophobia? I have never heard of this, but the answer is you have an intense fear of chickens or hens. Like other phobias, the fear people feel isn't proportional to the threat chickens pose. Symptoms, though, include guilt, shame, intense worry or dread, along with sometimes physical symptoms such as nausea, sweating, or shaking. It's more common among people from rural areas and could be sparked by experiencing a traumatic event involving a chicken. I did not know that, and I'm hoping that you learned something today about chickens as well. If you do suffer from that phobia, I apologize for talking about it, but I think all of us learned something today, and that is what this podcast is all about. Thank you so much for finding the Flyover podcast, for sharing with at least one, maybe 6 of your friends today. And tomorrow we'll be back with more headlines. Until then, thanks for flying with us.